Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. And good morning, Bristol. This is important. Slides are up there already. I'll repeat the link at the end. But this is important, this talk, really important for two reasons. Number one, this will be the most insightful and interesting 15 minutes that you spend with Excel this year. And nobody believes me. Everyone's really skeptical at the start, but wait till you get to the end. I'll explain why. And number two, I'm really pissed off because this shit has been going on for 20 years. It's not getting any better. Let me explain. Let me take you back in time, he said, looking for the clicker. No clicker, right. I'll let the guys sort out the clicker. I need the USB key for this one, by the way. So what are these? What are these? It's just a little hint. I'll explain exactly what these pound figures are when we get to the end. But first, some name checks. These are the three people that are involved in putting together all the stuff that you've seen in this deck. We've been optimizing device experience for clients now for 5 years, and we've developed some pretty good methods that will actually work very well with qualitative research. You know, it's not about numbers, qual versus quant here. It's about qual met quant, fell in love, and ran away together and lived forever, happily ever after, right? That's what this is about. But let me take you back to the year 2000. CD-ROMs, DVDs being sent in the post, right? And the start of mobile experiences, basically, on the web, right? Back then, Google was actually in beta, and it had been for 2 or 3 years. Yes, he works. Thank you very much. Google had been in beta, right? But I was also working for these guys, right, when they launched their first e-commerce website. And there's the interesting thing. Get a selected range of products at John Lewis Now. Who the fuck has heard of John Lewis Now? It doesn't exist. Because it was a product that they built and spent £1 million of, and it didn't fucking work on anybody's browsers, right? They actually built it using DHTML, if you're interested, and it didn't work on anybody's browsers apart from the developer's office, right? You know, customers, you know? So this is the crap I'm talking about, right? And let's flip forward 20 years. People think, oh, you have a really glamorous life. You get to travel to sunny places like Bristol, you know. You get to do all these amazing things, right? But actually, my life is full of this kind of crap. And, you know, it's almost like I'm shouldering kind of all of this misery. So I've collected some stuff to share with you. This is a great one, right? This is Norwegian's website, where they say to you, they have a dialogue box comes out, saying, would you like us to fill in your passport details? Yes, I would. Please fill in my passport details, which it pulls in with some stars in it, and then it tells me to fuck off. I've already filled it in. And it says, your passport number's invalid. I said, but I didn't fucking give it to you. You put it in, and then you tell me it's fucked up. How terrible is that? It gets better. I was sitting at freezing Lewisham train station, pouring with rain. Amazing, right? I saw this advert for Funchal in Madeira, right? Great, I want to go there. It looks warm, it looks amazing. Let's do it. Let's go to the landing page that British Airways has put on this billboard advert. And I get that, right? There's no holidays, no Madeira, no visceral imagery about the holiday I'm about to get. And about 9 million scrolls down the page, I eventually find something that vaguely looks like it. And then I click on that and I'm like, holy fuck, what's this, right? This is a mobile, right? No, this is not a 1080p monitor on its side. This is an iPhone, right? Look, see, right? See how small this stuff is, right? I mean, I've got it on a monitor here and you still can't read it, right? How are you going to do that on a 4-inch phone? It's just impossible. And when you look at the science, right? The touch targets are too close together and they're also too small. The error rate rises exponentially when you have these kind of tiny little touch targets, and people are thumb dominant these days. So you're trying to get that onto those fucking things. It requires precision. It's impossible, right? British Airways spent £1.5 million on this. I'm like, with whom? Can it be me next time? can I waste their money? I'll do it quicker and I'll put less effort into it, I promise, right? But just imagine what a finger's like on that. Let's show it real scale. The giant meat puppet, slap. Let's try and use the pagination control, shall we? Slap, you know. But it gets worse than this. When you eventually get tired of this and leave the site, you get one of these fucking survey pop-ups. We'd want your feedback. We'd like to take your feedback up the boogie. Yeah, no, there isn't a yes, please, because it's off fucking canvas. I can't even tell them how angry I am when I'm in the middle of rage because I can't click the button. Oh, such a shame. They'll be totally unaware that that's happened. And that's my feeling about British Airways. Here's another one. KLM, I was stumped by this one. You know, you get an error message and you think, whoa, holy fuck, what's that? This field can contain up to 12 characters. What do they mean? This field can, so put my password in again. This field can contain up to 12 characters. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, so I count my password. Oh, I've got 13 in my passport. So I have to like truncate my password because they want to save some fucking space in the database. Are you kidding? Do you know how cheap it is these days? But here's a really important point about the maths. This idea, this fallacy, this myth that password complexity makes it harder to crack. It doesn't. So if you take 8 characters, 2 numbers, 1 special character, like Y0, UR, MOM, @ right? Really hard to crack for people, right? But if we just take 9 characters of letters, no special characters. I mean, the fact that no one knows what a fucking special character is anyway, you know, they're thinking someone in a film, you know. But 9 characters, actually, it has 3 times more variance in the password, right? To guess, to crack. But this isn't how people steal passwords anyway. So it's all layers of bullshit wrapped around each other. Why are we doing this to people? It's pure evil. And I have a friend who has cognitive impairments that means he can't use the internet. So I have to buy all this stuff on the internet. It's like I'm his internet proxy bitch, right? He's my friend, right? You know, I'm happy to do it for him, but because I'm buying him bus tickets everywhere, I use the National Express site all the time, and they have an intermittent bug. This is what happens. You get this main footer terms and conditions translate, main footer conditions of carriage translate. That's really, really helpful. And then I look at a landing page experience and think, oh, I'll go and land on the page that the most used with a laptop. Holy fuck, it's just vomit, you know? I call this viewport stacking. Use real people's viewports, and then you see how all the crap that they stack in there actually looks like. And that's what it looks like. Impossible to use. Not a fucking landing page experience. It's terrible. And then NatWest. For 2 months, I had running fucking conversations with NatWest about their cookie handling that they keep resetting. And for a 2-month period, I could not use NatWest on Chrome. This would happen every time. And I wasted hours with futile conversations in NatWest. I've got a chat transcript. If I went through it now, you'd be in tears by the end of it. They wouldn't listen. They don't fucking care. They do not care about me. They do not care about this problem. They made me use Internet Explorer for 2 months. It's not fair. It's almost enough to make me want to change bank, you know? And then you get ridiculous things like this, you know? Autofill will put my phone number in like this. I travel loads of places. It's in that format. You mean programmers can't work out how to parse strings? Like, come on. +44. I wonder what that could be. Maybe it could be the country code. But this is my favorite one. When you're testing, you're going through doing the heuristic evaluation, you occasionally stop, right? Write things down, take little notes. But other times you go, wait a minute, what are they saying? Invalid phone number format, only digits. Only digits are allowed. Only digits. What do you mean only digits? I put all the digits in there. No, what they meant was a 0 is not a digit. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is AM, and you're having a philosophical conversation with me about whether 0 is a fucking digit or not. Your validation rules suck, man. They totally do. But this is a big problem. So I've got a new definition for you. It's called a UX bug. This is where the developers and everybody swear that the code is correct, but it's still shit. Look at this one, right? This is a site where you sign up, but when you're not signed up, you get advertising. What do you think this blue button is behind? Yes, the sign up for people who haven't given you any money. So your advertising has just shafted your entire business model. It's great, it's wonderful. But this happens a lot. Modals, overlays, chatter survey pop-ups, map jail, where you can't scroll up, product image jail, where you can't move the mobile page because the image zooms. There's no scroll bars in Chrome, you can't dismiss the modals. Viewport, biggest determinant of conversion rate on mobile is how your product works in smaller viewports. Trust me, right? And then touch target size and spacing, and even simple stuff like color contrast. You don't have the right contrast set up, nobody can read any fucking words on your website, right? So they're not going to buy anything if they can't do that. This is a great one. These guys have revenue of 8 to 12 million pounds a month. They should know better. They asked me this really stupid question. I need to frame this. Hey, Craig, on our form analytics, the most edited field is a customer name. Can you explain why people are having to edit their names all the time? And I'm like, no, people normally get their names by the age of 3 or 4, kind of work out how to fucking spell them, and then they don't forget, right? What's actually happening is your developers have been really stupid, right? Auto spelling, right? One of the biggest problems around on mobile. One single form attribute, autocorrect. There's lots of places you shouldn't have it. Names, email addresses, passwords, URL fields, search fields, captchas. Inputs where autocomplete can compete with and shaft the other elements of your UI, right? This is ridiculous stuff, but 80% of the e-commerce sites that Baymar tested recently had the wrong keyboard typeset. That is the real world, right? And then you get this shit, like, oh, we want you to put your telephone number in, but no, we're not going to give you a numeric keypad. We're going to ask you to spell it phonetically using letters. 490 is my phone number. And this shit makes me really fucking angry because it's the same shit that we were doing back 20 years ago. And we're still doing it. We're still introducing it into products, but nobody calls up and complains about it. Nobody tells you. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, my hierarchy of needs from a product here just starts with this. The shit works on customer devices. That's your starting point. It loads and runs quickly. Customers can actually read the text, right? And then they can use it, right? And then there's some other stuff up there, marketing and a whole load of other bullshit, but that stuff is taken care of if you have a foundation that isn't weak, right? So device compatibility, performance, accessibility, usability, and then some easy shit on the top. And if you're not doing this, if you're attempting to deliver an advanced personalization project when you have all these problems of performance and device compatibility lurking in there, what you're doing is you're burning rubber in the UX car park, right? What happens is everybody turns up having a fucking great time. There's light, there's sound, there's smoke. Everyone thinks they're having an amazing time. Thousands of miles are clocked up on the speedo, but at the end of the night, you're still in the fucking car park, right? Feels great, right? Everyone's really happy, but you haven't actually gone anywhere. So we all have product defects. Our companies have them, our clients have them. They're in products everywhere, right? You know, it's just until you have actually tested to see whether you have these problems or not, you don't know. It's a Schrodinger's cat situation. It's just a bullshit assumption. People say to me, our site works on all the popular devices. Bullshit. Show me. The problem here is nobody ever calls up, right? Or if they do call up, something happens to that call. And what if only one person calls? What if nobody calls? That doesn't mean that your site isn't broken, right? So you cannot rely upon customers calling you as the canary in the coal mine of the user experience, right? When I see problems on these sites, I think, oh, it's just bad code, bug, rendering issue, right? But what do customers see? Their lens is, I see dog shit in the retail experience. You have no idea how hard it is to find a picture of dog shit in a shop on Google. See, that's the thing that takes time in these presentations, searching for images of dog shit 2 hours later, right? But it's true. If you had this in a store and someone just put this shit up and said, never mind, just walk around the shit. It's okay. It's normal service, right? But that's what it's like. They don't see a coding problem or a little slip. They think your site is broken, defective, and that you don't fucking care about them, which is generally true. The other problem is that the call center acts as the largest nappy in the world. And this is the largest nappy in the world. And it basically absorbs all of customer problems that go there to die. It's the elephant's graveyard of customer problems because they're often designed in ways where the only thing that escapes the terminal velocity of the black hole that is the call center are KPIs. So you just see all these KPIs that come out of them, but people don't have a proper bug hunting approach. You don't have a way of recording this stuff. And they're often passed on to support teams where they say, oh, we can't reproduce your problem, so it doesn't exist, right? The costs are huge. The effort to find it is low. And it's very, very rare to see this. People offer bounties for security, but I wish companies would start offering bounties for bugs that are costing them money because it's the same thing. And manufacturing has solved this shit years ago. You know, back in these days when you were building cars, if you didn't build them properly, people are going to die from it, right? You know, it's not just product recalls. It's about the management of risk to a company of quality and defects in products. So Lean and Six Sigma and all these things have been around for a long time. But you want these kind of things in your web product, right? You know, and you want to avoid people kind of dying when using your product, which is some of the stuff I've been showing you already. But, you know, we're not using these methodologies in terms of trying to get quality code out, right? There's got to be a better way. But what one thing would make a difference for these companies? What one thing would change all of this and stop these problems happening? It would just be if they fucking proved that the stuff actually worked on the devices. And there's a way of doing that. So what I'm going to show you here is just a very quick technique. All of the workings for this are available on the deck, and there's a Medium article online. There's some groundwork that you have to do here before you start. Someone should have audited your Google Analytics configuration, because if you're pulling data from it and it's made up of bullshit, then you have a problem. About 95% of all the companies that I look at have something wrong with theirs. So there's a complete guideline for how to check that stuff and make sure it's actually working. So you pull your numbers. But what I'm then interested in doing is going into Google Analytics. Can I use Google Analytics to tell me stuff about device experience and how well it's working and what the audiences are and what kind of shit they have in their hands, right? Because that'll be really useful when it comes to qualitative research. So I'm looking, what kind of data should I pull out here? You know, I want to kind of find out what the major devices groups are, but I also want to see which ones are performing well and poorly. Where do they suck? Do they suck on the landing page? Do they suck further in? Do they suck in the checkout? And these are the things that I'm trying to pull out. But this one little diagram is a really important one because this is the conceptual model of how you split the data in Google Analytics. And if you do it this way, it's all explained in the article, you will actually get the right audience segments out of Google Analytics to work out what their performance is. So when you look at Google Analytics, just some interesting stuff. Mobile is predominantly an Apple and Android show, right? Windows phones are there, but it's a tiny percent for most companies, like 1 or 2%. Google Analytics will not tell you the iPhone model reliably. Don't look at the iPhone model in Google Analytics because it's wrong, right? And the article explains this. But what you can do is look at the screen resolution. And on the Apple developer site, they have a scaling of the screen geometry to the UI kit size that then gets passed into Google Analytics. So you can see if it has that resolution, then it must be an iPhone X. And that's really handy for splitting out the models. Because one of the things that we find with iPhones is that everybody fucking builds for this, right? But nobody tests on these two. And this phone, this size of phone, the 325/68 and the 375/667 are almost all of your audience. These are tiny, right? So you must test on the smaller phones because they are most representative of your audience. And then when it comes to desktop, it's, you know, Chrome, an auto-updating browser, Edge, an auto-updating browser, Firefox, an auto-updating browser, and Explorer. Well, I won't say anything about that, really. And in fact, this has almost disappeared, right? Internet Explorer 11 is very small. Microsoft Edge is taking over from this. And the number of browsers that are now auto-updating makes our lives an awful lot easier. And then on desktop Macs, there's a couple of interesting things because you know, we could just test the latest version of Safari and Chrome. Some people may have large, older Safari audiences, but generally everyone's getting onto here. But one of the interesting things that you often see is that, you know, you look at a Mac laptop and you'll think, oh, that converts at 6% of them buy, right? But on Windows, it's like 2%. Does that mean that our Mac experience is better? No, because the difference in performance figures in Google Analytics could be down to the device experience they're getting, but it's also influenced by the person behind the keyboard. And anyone that can afford a fucking Mac these days, they must have lots of money, right? Okay, so it's because of the socio-demographic skew of the people behind the keyboard that they normally look like they're a better experience than the Windows ones. Interesting and true. Tablets have been falling in my figures. It's dominated by Apple. Some countries have a small amount of Android and almost nothing on Windows. But here's a kind of finished example. If you go through the model I'm just about to mention, then you can fill in all these things. So that's our traffic figures. We can see relatively how much share mobile and desktop has, and then we can see how that splits in terms of operating system underneath. But these figures also kind of tell us about conversion. And the first flag that I have here for this client is that Apple is converting lower than Android, and that almost never happens, right, on mobile. So that's the flag. I need to test these Apple devices, okay? And over here, I have the same thing. Apple iPads are converting way worse than Android tablets, and that's another little flag. There's all these signals to look out for. But this is what you can get. If you take the model, 15 minutes, you can have one of these filled out for any website. And you'll find the whole thing on there, complete step-by-step naughty instructions, which is download that custom report from Google Analytics, get that Excel sheet with blanks in it, and yeah, fill in the blanks. Take shit out of that and plug it in there, and it auto-calculates. So here's kind of one I made earlier. This is just out of interesting. So why is it that these Android phones almost convert at half, right? Android tablets and Android phones almost converting at half or even less than iOS. And we found 13 bugs that affected almost every Android device. We fixed them and it closed most of that gap, right? It's not telling you why, it's just giving you a clue as to how big and where. It's your job then to figure out why there is that difference. Small screen iPhones, we see these patterns all the time. You know, you've got great big iPhones that convert better, but it's to do with the viewport. There are critical elements of navigation overlays, the first kind of view that you have in viewport with smaller screen devices. So you need to test with lower common denominator when it comes to mobile phones. So a Samsung S8 or an iPhone 6S is a really good bet, right? It's very representative. And here's another worked out example pulling all this kind of stuff out. So you're getting a map, you're getting a mental map of what customers are using and what's working well and not so well for them. Now, strictly speaking, to find out where these people are dropping out, you then need to funnelize the experience. And there are various tools and ways of doing that that are explained in that document too. But let's then talk about the meat of it. I've done the analysis, I've looked at some stuff. I want to run some tests now. I want to run a heuristic evaluation, or I want to actually recruit people who actually match this information that I found. But this is a minimum viable testing list. If you buy this crap that's on here, that will do almost all of it. And this is true for almost every site that I work on. Get a small iPhone, get an S8 or 9, get 2 laptops, right? One set to 1440 by 900, one 1366 by 768, and some browsers on there, and 2 tablets, right? You have 6 devices there that will cover almost all the stuff. So let's imagine you break something on Android mobile, right? That will break reliably across every Android or almost every Android mobile that you have. If you fix it, it will resolve itself across every Android mobile. So there's a great deal of consistency there, right? You can figure this stuff out, but that should be your testing rig. If you run the site or you have clients, you need to look at this stuff. Those 6 things will cover almost everything. So here's a good example I showed to a client. They said, what should be in our testing list? And I said, well, you should test half of your customers with these 2. Or if you add this, then we're up to 84%. And then if you add these on, then we're up to 92%. And they said, well, we'll test all these for small releases, and for bigger releases, we'll test all 3 of these. Brilliant. So they know what to test now. No one's making this shit up or telling the developers it's their fucking problem to work out what to test. It's not their problem. They might have to do the testing, but somebody else needs to figure out what they should be testing. Here's another interesting thing. When you actually analyze the screen heights, no one's noticed this, but screen height relative to width has been getting smaller over the last few years. Why is that? Widescreen formats, it's a bigger ratio of width to depth, so the depth is smaller because the laptops haven't been getting bigger. But what we find is that a huge amount of people have less than 900 or less than 800 pixels available, right? So this is incredibly important. People are designing shit with these size monitors and then giving it to customers with these size viewports. And you need to stop this, because that's why that landing page experience sucked earlier on. So this client has 4 lenses onto the device experience, and these represent, a huge percentage of their visitors. And you don't need to buy this stuff. You can use cross-browser testing, other online services. Amazon and Device Anywhere do rentable devices in the cloud. So if I want to rent a particular Android device, then I can do that. If I want to rent an iPhone in Rio de Janeiro and visit the Brazilian App Store and install something, I can rent that device sitting in Rio, okay? So there's no excuse. You can get hold of these from friends and family, from your colleagues. There's even open device labs. If you go to opendevicelab.com, they will actually show you where all the local device labs are, and they're free, right? There's lots of them all around the world. So there's no excuse. You need to get the lenses that customers have onto your product experience. But it gets more interesting, because this is sort of my methodology for sort of baselining a site, but this is interesting for you, because how does all this quantitative stuff help our qualitative research? Well, it means that you know which groups of customer devices get a raw deal, right? You can make sure that they come in for the testing. Oh, I'm sneaky, right? You can set up heuristic walkthroughs to be representative. So you're not doing your heuristic walkthrough in a 1920 by 1080 monitor. You're doing it on a particular browser on a laptop, because that's what your customers have. You can work out the split of mobile and desktop participants in a test. You can set up your lab kit to be representative. There are all sorts of benefits in terms of recruitment and testing, right? And if you funnelize the data, you can even work out, well, maybe we should spend 40 minutes looking at the product page, because that's really where everybody drops out. And we would then expect to find a massive amount of problems at that step. So what this stuff can help you do is it cuts down your problem to size. It halves it and halves it again. You cannot usability test a whole site in an hour. People say, we're usability testing our site today. Yeah, how long is that going to take? Oh, we have people in for an hour. Right, so you're going to test our whole site in an hour? Right, are you fucking kidding? You might get like 3 or 4 pages done in that time. But which 3 or 4 pages? The ones that you pick, that you quite fancy, or the ones that the data tells you that you should be looking at? So how do we then make this a lot simpler? And the answer is, you don't even need to use the Excel model. You can actually automate all of this stuff. So what I do for a lot of client sites now is I create a thing called a grid. And I basically pull out some traffic, some behavioral data, some e-commerce, if it's e-commerce or engagement stuff, and then sales figures. And then I'll plug in some waypoints, like, did they get to a list page? Did they get to a product page? did they get to the start of the checkout? And what I then do is run this through a tool that massively dimensionalizes all this and gives me a funnel for iPhones, a funnel for people coming from India, a funnel for people from Spain, a funnel for Mac browsers. And looking across that grid, there's a load of stuff that doesn't interest me at all, but occasionally my eye will go, that's wrong, that's weird, we need to check that out. And then we'll go and look at those 3 to 5 things rather than trying to test the world, right? It's impossible to have the kind of coverage that you want. The data helps cut the problem down to size. But also it means that you're actually focusing on areas that will uncover massive problems for your client, which is a good thing. And here is a tool that we've built that will actually do that dimensionalization for you. This is a massive travel site, and we ran this grid and we thought, this is really weird that tablets are low converting in the middle of the booking process. And it turns out that if you try and book a train ticket on a tablet, like if you go London to Paris, Paris to London, that's cool. But if you do Edinburgh or Bristol to London to Paris, you can't book the return journey because the JavaScript is broken on the fucking button, right? It's just like, and what people are doing is, we thought they were losing money. Well, they were, but what they were doing is they were rebooking on desktop. So you've got tens of thousands of people every month really pissed off because they've had to book twice. You know, what's that doing to your satisfaction scores? Never mind the numbers, feel the anger. So it's worth 800K per month in additional sales for those guys. And there's a whole load of stuff here. If you can use Excel, then you can automate pulling data out of Google Analytics, and all of this stuff is free. Free Google Sheets add-on, a guide to getting started, and then how to pull stuff from the Google API, which is actually really easy to use. I don't code, and I can pull this stuff, so you can too. Here's another example of automation, and this was the product jail one. We look at yield, a bit like a farmer. What yield do I get from these different types of fields, you know? And so we take clusters of pages, product pages, homepage, people that land on brand pages, category, and blog. And then we look how many of those then go on to actually convert, you know? And this tells us if there are any massive problems at particular landing routes. And we were like, why is that so low? We don't know. So we checked and we found that it was just happening on touch devices. And we thought, that's really weird. It's Apple touch devices. Went in, it was all touch devices. We went in, and you can't move the product page up because when you touch the image, it zooms in. And you know, it's like when you're trying to move the map and there's this tiny little sliver at the side and you're going like that to get it to move. And their average basket is £4,400, right? How much money are they losing? Well, within 1 week, that went up to 0.96%, 7 times the conversion. It's added 30% onto the revenue this client gets every week. One bug. And they said, but nobody called us up and told us. I'm like, no, they won't. You have to fucking test it, right? That's it. And the guy said, fuck me, Craig. That one bug is actually going to earn us more money this year than all fucking A/B testing that we did last year. All that bullshit A/B testing that was basically putting a sparkler in a dog turd. It's still a dog turd. Like, oh, it's highly personalized. We've got a really shit experience, but we personalize that shit experience. So it's personally shitty for you, just for you. Don't do the dog shit and sparkler thing. But this is what all of this is like to me, quantitative and qualitative, although it feels like a quant diagram. People say to me, help, my product's not working. Help, my watch isn't showing the right time on the front, right? And in order to be able to fix that problem, I have to understand the gearing and how these things work inside the site. Which devices do and don't suck is part of that kind of gearing and traffic. And every site is unique, right? The problem here, it's really difficult to solve this problem of device experience if you don't understand it and quantify it and cut it down to size. But there is an impact from this, and it's a very important point because, you know, maybe people aren't doing this intentionally, but unintentional discrimination is still fucking discrimination. So if you're not checking whether people can actually read your text at sufficient contrast, you have people who wear corrective lenses like me, then you've got a problem, because what you're saying is, do you know what? Fuck you. We don't want your fucking money, you glasses-wearing bastards. We only want people with 20/20 vision on this website. That's our brand value. And then what about if you've got a Mac, right? You've got a Mac and you've got a nice lime white table to sit it on? That's fuck you. You've got loads of money. We don't want your money, high socio-demographic Mac user. And then, okay, you could be wealthy and old and using Internet Explorer 7 and own several classic cars, right? And have loads of money, but we don't want your fucking money either because we don't like the cut of your browser, right? Screw you. And the other problem is that a lot of people don't pay attention to Android, and Android varies hugely by markets. The difference from Spain to UK is quite big, and if you go to the US, it's even more marked a difference. But what happens here is because it gets kind of left behind, you fucking discriminate against poorer people. It's like saying you have less money, fuck you. All around the world, fuck you, fuck the world. That's what it's like. So we don't care if our shit works on your shit. And this is the problem, because that diagram that I showed you earlier on was the amount of money in millions of pounds that these people were losing every month, right? 1 issue, 5 issues. All of these bugs in total on all of these websites took less than 5 days of developer time to fix after we tested them. So what's the ROI on that? Fucking huge. I don't need to work it out. So really the problem here is you need to understand that accessibility, people being able to access your product, it just massively expands your audience reach. And if you don't know what your audience reach is, then you're doomed because you can't solve it. And all this device testing that you get to do, especially if it's incisive, it drives customer happiness and profit. All that friction, all that pain, all that misery counts up to hundreds of thousands of hours of crap in people's lives every day. And we're actually doing a social service for the world. That's where our productivity is gone. It's dealing with all this shit every day and all these applications that should work. But really, the most important point from today is use these tools to end device discrimination on your site today. Thank you very much for your time. Slides are there.